During Unit 8, you're going to be taking the midterm exam in this class, which is now going to be a timed take-home open book exam conducted in WebAssign. To use that exam, you'll have to come in through a quiz. You won't go directly in the way you do for your homework assignments. So in Unit 7, to help clarify this, I've created a practice exam, an opportunity to test the links and make sure everything will work for your midterm exam process. By taking the practice exam in Unit 7, you shouldn't have any problem or errors when you take the actual midterm exam in Unit 8. So this video is just a quick set of instructions to guide you through what's going to be available in Unit 7 for the practice exam. This exam is about the mechanics of getting in and out of the tools and looking at the integration of web courses and WebAssign. It is not a practice exam for the actual statistical content of the midterm. That material will come later in a separate source. So when you come into your modules next week for coming in for the practice exam, you'll see in Unit 7 you have a practice exam module that's going to show up, and that's got everything you need to be able to take the exam as you go through. So I want to take you very quickly through the basic sequence. The first is to start with the instructions. So I recommend you open it in a new window. I'm in Chrome. You do that in Chrome by holding the Control key while you press the link to create the new window. If you do the right click in Chrome and select Open Link in a new window, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But try to make sure you're opening things in a new window if you can as you go through. So the Instructions tab opens in my new window, and I can now come through that. And it has all the instructions for going through the entire process. Let me walk you through it just a little bit. But read these instructions carefully, because WebAssign and web courses are not that well integrated, so we don't want to make any kind of mistakes. If you make a mistake in this process, you could end up with a 0 on the exam, because if you end up taking the exam in WebAssign not using the proctor in Canvas to monitor you, I will give you a 0 on the exam even if you successfully complete the exam. So at no point should you go directly into WebAssign and just start taking your midterm exam. Make sure you're following these instructions very, very carefully. So read through the instructions as you go, and I've broken it into stages for you. In stage 0, which you can go ahead and do at any time, go ahead and check to make sure everything works in your basic browser. So for instance, if you make sure your browser works with Proctor Hub, the exam is going to use the camera in your computer to actually monitor you as you go through. So make sure the process works and that you can actually see yourself as you go through the process. So use the test software to do that when you get a chance. The CDL says Chrome and Firefox work perfectly for this. I don't know about other Windows-based browsers. I know Safari typically does not work, so please test your browser to make sure it will work during the exam. If it doesn't, you'll have to go to the computer lab to take the exam. Also, I'm told, it's not required, but it's recommended that you clear your browser cache before you take the exam so that nothing gets messed up in the way the software tries to interface or use Flash because things are going on. So you can do that at any time before taking the exam just to make sure your computer works for the browser. If the Proctor Hub doesn't work on your computer, or you have a computer that does not have a camera that will be able to be pointed to you during the exam, you've got to go find a computer. Worst case, just go to the CECS computer labs and you can use a lab in that room. On the day of the actual exam, so the day in this case that you're taking the practice exam, stage 1 allows you to get started. So first, the exam is a timed exam. You can't stop once you start. So go to the restroom before you start the exam. Make sure you have a good internet connection. Make sure your webcam light is turned on. Test it again that day if you need to. And get out your UCF ID card or other photo ID like a driver's license, something that identifies you with a picture. Have it ready when you take the exam. And at all times while you're taking the exam, plan to sit right in front of the webcam so that the camera can see you as you go. Number 6 here is important because this is an open book exam where I expect you to take notes and show your work. So if you're planning to use Excel or Word or any other software while you're taking the exam, go ahead and open it up now before you start the exam so that you don't waste time during the timed exam opening up your software. Also, if you're in Excel, for instance, create an empty workbook and go ahead and save it to your hard drive and give it a name. So that you don't have to do any save as or anything extra. You can't forget to save the file. You'll have your file already saved, and you can just continuously press save as you take your exam, and you'll be saving all of your work. You can also use scrap paper if you want. If you do that, plan in advance for how and when you're going to digitally scan that material in so that you can submit it to the assignment I'm going to give you. Your scrap paper submission has to be in within 30 minutes of completing the exam. So don't wait till the exam is finished to start thinking about where am I going to scan this paper in to be able to send it in. I'm expecting most people to simply use Excel the way we do in class and in the homeworks. So if you're using Excel to show your work and do your calculations, all you have to do is save your Excel spreadsheet and you'll later submit it to me via the scrap paper assignment. So that's the getting started phase. You're not being timed yet, so just plan to do that as the opening step and do it very, very carefully. Now we come to the part of actually taking the quiz and the exam. So you're actually going to be taking a quiz in web courses that you're going to leave open while you go take the test in WebAssign. So this has to be done carefully so you don't accidentally close your windows. So here in this stage, you're going to start up the exam process as you go through. So if you open this window well in a new window, then your course modules tab is still open and you can come back to the course tab and open up the quiz if you want. If you accidentally closed that window, you can actually just use this link to open up that quiz in a new window as you go. But either way, you want to open the quiz in a new window, and it will look a little different for the final exam because I'm still working on it. But it will turn on your video monitor. I'm going to block mine out for now, just I don't really need it. But make sure your camera is showing that you can see it as you go through. So when you take this quiz, I'm going to preview it. Remember, as an instructor, my screen looks a little different than yours would end up looking, so be aware of that. I'll update these instructions some more as I go. But you're basically going to be answering a couple of questions. The first one, where you agree to the terms of the exam. There'll be a bit more text here by then. You need to say yes. At that point, it's time to open the exam. So don't close this window no matter what. Proctor Hub and your camera is going to monitor you through the entire process. So if I still have my original window open, I can come back here and open up my WebAssign window from here. If I've again accidentally closed that window, I can go back to that window by pressing this link here into a new window. But either way, you want to get to the point where you're opening up your WebAssign link in a new window. Again, I'm using the control key to do that as I go. So that takes me to my WebAssign link where I click to go into WebAssign. And when I get there, I'll see my WebAssign courses. I have the 2 for this class. You'll only have the 1. And by that day on this list, the practice exam will be present, and you'll simply take the practice exam when you get there. It works just like a homework. The only difference is that it's a timed open book test. For this practice exam, there's virtually no content, so don't worry about the test. Just go in and take it and submit it. So that I can see that the process is working as you go. Once you have submitted the exam in that process, go all the way through the submit process, then you can close this WebAssign window or any other WebAssign windows that you've gotten up and just come back over to the instructions. So you've gone out now and taken the exam while the Proctor Hub webcam is monitoring you. So read through these exams for that step. This point of no return is important. Up until this point, everything you've done in these instructions hasn't started the timer on your exam. So if something messes up or you don't think it's working, just stop and start over. But once you pass this point, once you actually click to go into your exam, the clock will be running and you can't stop it. So be very, very careful about closing windows. Once you submit the exam, like I showed you, we submitted our exam, we closed our WebAssign window, which again comes back to these instructions. So at that point, the instructions say basically go back to the web course quiz window, which has been running this whole time from which we went to the exam, and come down and answer question 2, saying you've adhered to the terms of the exam. Once you do that, you can simply submit the quiz and you'll be done. Okay, so that finishes up the quiz. Having finished the quiz window, we no longer need the cam. We can go ahead and close this window as we go through. The only remaining step now is to submit your scrap paper. So if you've been using Excel or typing things into Word or writing things on paper or any of the above, right after you finish the exam, take those things and go to the practice midterm scrap paper assignment, which will open up and give you the option. Remember, as an instructor, I'm seeing it different than you'll see it, but you'll have the option to submit the assignment. Just submit those files, whatever files you have to me. Do not combine them as a zip file, because WebCourses doesn't handle zip files well. So you can have multiple files if you want, that's fine. Just submit them all to this assignment so that I have a record of your work after you take the exam. When you finish that, you can close that window, and that's really the end of it. At that point, you will have finished your exam as you come through. The only extra thing I ask you to do for the practice exam is I've given you a discussion in which you can give me your feedback. So ask questions about the process, ask questions about the exam, give feedback whether you liked it or not. The more feedback you give me, the better, because then I can fix and improve the process before you take the actual midterm in Unit 8. So I'm hoping I'll get a lot of feedback from people here in the discussion thread. And that's the entire process of taking the exam. There are some support numbers here for calling Web Courses support if you're having trouble making your CAM work or having trouble with the quiz, but hopefully you won't need them. So like I said, it's a very complicated process. It requires these multiple steps. The reason is because WebAssign is not well integrated under Web Courses. And yet the Web Courses is the tool that will monitor you and serve as proctor during the take-home exam. So just keep in mind you're taking a WebAssign exam. It's going to look and feel just like your homework assignments. But it must be done while Web Courses is running the video cam for the quiz under Proctor Hub. Very, very important distinction. So make sure you can get it right. Feel free to take the practice exam several times if it helps you, but try to be confident, because when you get into the midterm exam in Unit 8, all of this has to work. And if you end up taking the exam in WebAssign without the Proctor Hub monitoring you on the camera, you will receive a 0 for the exam, and we certainly don't want that to happen.